Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Sun seems to have gone away. Have a look. Those clouds might be harbouring some rain. Who knows? So this is an interesting conversation. I had a comment from somebody recently that said, is it true? Can we really get £40,000 properties up north? And I thought I would answer the question. The short answer is yes, but there is a bit more complication to it. So let's start with what we're trying to achieve when we're investing in property. What most people are trying to achieve is to increase their pot of cash. And whether that's to create an additional income stream, so you get that money on a yearly basis, on a monthly basis, or whether that's to increase the capital value of the property itself, so you get that when you sell the property, or over time as you remortgage the property. So the whole point of it is to give you an investment, but there's another part of property that people typically tend to like, and one is that it's a tangible asset, so something that you can touch, and that makes it safe and secure. For most people, especially if you're living in and around London and you're looking to invest in the north, one of the other characteristics that you'll need to be aware of is you want, as much as possible, a system that works for you. So you want a hands-free experience. You want a passive investment, or as much as is possible, you want an investment that's going to work for you in the background, where you don't have to actually spend time or too much time on a weekly or monthly basis managing the investment. So I think that's really important to say at the start. So then coming on to, can we really purchase properties for £40,000? Again, most people that would be purchasing in London will know that properties are, at least a few £100,000, £300,000, £400,000, £500,000. 2-bedroom flats at the moment around the northwest London area going at 600 grand, 550 grand. And those are flats, and we're buying freehold houses. So you can imagine why people think that that's a ridiculous amount, or ridiculously low amount of money to pay for a house. The answer is yes, we can get properties for £40,000. You can even get properties for £30,000 or £50,000, any of these numbers. But the problem is, or the thing you need to think about is, what is that property going to give you? And where are those properties? So is it going to give you rental income? Yes, if you can find someone to rent the property, and if there is sufficient demand in that area. I would argue that a £40,000 property either needs a sufficient amount of work to be done to it in order to rent it out, or it's a property in an area that doesn't really have a huge amount of rental demand, doesn't really have a huge population in that area, and so the prices are much lower in that area. So if you think about London, obviously there's a massive demand for properties in London. Lots of people want to move to London for jobs and culture, lifestyle, all the rest of it, and as a result the prices increase. The less people there are in an area, or the less people that want to move to an area, the prices obviously decrease. So £40,000 would only be achievable if you were buying in an area which there wasn't that much tenant demand, or demand in general for properties, or two, that there was lots of demand, but the property was in such a state that it was probably actually going to be worth 80, 90, £100,000 once you've refurbished it, but it needs a good 50, 60, £70,000 worth of refurb to do, which is quite a lot of money to spend on a property that is that far away from you. So the first thing is it going to give you the rental income, which we've just discussed? The next thing then we need to think about is it going to give you the capital growth? And this is a really important point which most people don't consider. The capital growth on a property, typically speaking, and again this is like using previous data, is usually going to account for about 2/3 of the overall return that you're going to make over a decade or so. And what that means is, if you're investing in a property and it's expected that you're not going to get any capital growth, or very, very low capital growth, then you're missing out on 2/3 of the return that you could be making. And so when you're looking at a property for capital growth, we need to make sure it's an area, again, that people want to rent in and want to buy those houses, but also that they are going to want to do that in the future as well, because what we're looking at is not just the price of the house today, but how that's going to increase over time over the next decade. And of course, when you have what we call like developing cities or emerging cities, which aren't massive today, so they're not the size of London today, they're not the size of Birmingham today, but they are getting bigger. There's lots of reasons why they're getting bigger. And an example to give you is Leeds. Is a new infrastructure hub that's just been set up in Leeds. It's got the remit to basically invest in the surrounding area, and I can't remember how much money it is, but there's lots and lots of money that the government has devoted to regional development. So that means developments outside of London, outside of Birmingham. On top of that, we've got the new train lines that are being developed, the HS2, the M1 motorway widening works that's been happening for the last 10-15 years now. All of these things make it easier for labour and capital, so that means people and money, effectively, and businesses, obviously, to move to the regions. So where they could rent, a building in London, say, and it might cost them £100,000 a year, they could probably rent the exact same building in Leeds, and it might cost them £25,000 a year. And a saving of £75,000 like that obviously can come right onto the bottom line. On top of that, obviously, there's going to be a reduction in the wage costs, because obviously when you live in London, you've got to pay for people's travel, their expenses. All of these things are quite expensive in London, whereas outside of London, they're a lot cheaper. So in general, if you're looking at investing in areas that you know are going to grow, that's where the capital growth is going to be. And areas where we know there's going to be lots of demand for the properties is where, and rental demand specifically, is where the rental return is going to be. So is it worth buying a £40,000 house? I would argue, and not quite from experience, because I haven't bought a £40,000 house, but I have bought a £60,000 house, and I would argue that it's a little bit more difficult and a little bit more hands-on, and there's a lot more involved when you buy a £60,000 house or a £40,000 house versus the kind of more hands-free option that most people are looking for when they invest in property, when they buy a £100,000 or £150,000 house, and they can buy that house, get it a small refurb and then rent it out pretty quickly to great quality tenants, because it's going to be in a good area, lots of tenant demand, and the prices are going to increase over time. Of course, the other thing is, if you've got a £150,000 house and it increases by 10% per year, for example, it'll increase by 15 grand per year. So over a decade, if it continues to increase at that rate, it'll be worth £150,000 more. The £40,000 house, at the same 10% increase, which obviously is not going to happen, because the whole point, the reason why it's 40 is because there's a reduction, or there's less demand in that area. But assume that it does increase at 10% per year. If that is the case, then it will still only be increasing at £4,000 a year, and over 10 years that will be 40 grand. So on one side you'll have made 150 grand, and the other side you'll have made 40 grand. Just a couple of considerations to think about. As I said, yes, the answer is yes, you can buy houses for £40,000. The real answer is you probably don't want to. Hope that helps. Hope that's been useful, and enjoy your day. See you soon. Bye bye.